Welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. I'm your host, Luke Velasca, and it is an absolute pleasure to be back. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Taylor. Kyle, thank you for joining me yet another Wednesday. We're right here in the middle, or almost the end of September here, about to head into Q4. How are you doing?
Oh, it's been a rush. It's been the longest, fastest year of my life. I feel like I've aged 5 years since COVID has hit. And we're just back at it again. You know, coming out of last week, being with Henry Byers, it was a great show with the Global Trade Summit, and I'm glad to kind of be back to our normal self, though, a little bit, talking about the original data sets, the volumes, looking towards what can we try to predict towards the end of the year. I think that's the hardest question that we're all trying to find. Yeah.
Well, we're always trying to predict something here. You know, why they let us get up here and try to predict things, I don't know, but here we are. But no, we're really in an interesting time, and I know we've said that a few times because, I mean, this whole year has just been unprecedented, but I think there's a couple things going on. So for you know, obviously folks know the title, we really do think that the bullish move in freight is going to continue. Mainly talking about volume here, but we know that, you know, volume obviously changes demand and capacity, so as a general rule, rates will probably follow directionally to some extent.
Right.
But you know, staying on track with volume, we've seen unprecedented volume levels. And we put out an article, I believe it was just a few days ago, talking about all the changes and why the bullish case for freight may continue. But it really does. A lot of the data that we have points to that. It really, there's no real sign showing that it's going to slow down in the near term. Let's just call it through year end.
Yeah. No, per usual, here, little old FreightWaves over here was talking months ago about what was going on, what we were looking towards the end of the year, and so what's happening, all these other data sets are starting to catch up. Yep. You're seeing sell-side analysts starting to report, you know, what they are thinking towards the end of the year. You're looking at different people, different type of research companies that are also now saying the opposite of what they said a couple months ago, which is, oh, well, looks like we're seeing increased volumes, look like we're seeing increased demand for trucking capacity. So it's like, wow. Get in line, buddy. We've been yelling this till we're blue in the face, so it makes a lot of sense that us over here are bringing out the horns. We're calling the bull market, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. There's really just I would say a handful. I mean, we're looking at, you know, trucks, you know, new drivers aren't entering the market. I mean, people have been talking about this for months, is that, you know, just
certainly
like
not at the pace that's
just like
needed.
what we talked about in sales, that top of the funnel is the most important. If you're not continuing to add people at the top of the funnel, you're not going to get anything through. So we're not getting new drivers coming into these education facilities. Secondary, we're seeing all-time highs in demand for trucks.
Yeah, I mean, load tenders right now are approximately 50% above where they were this time last year?
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at van is right at about 25% rejection rates. Reefers upwards of 30, and then I think flatbed's down at 9, which makes sense. And so, but you know, so we're looking at that. So looks like there's not a supply coming into the market as fast as what we need. We're not seeing we're seeing volumes continue to maintain where we've seen them. So that there's continued tightness in capacity. And then we're starting to see other data sets that are saying that the flatbed market's going to continue to now spike up. Flatbed's been really flat through this entire time. Now that we're seeing, yeah, you like that?
See what you did there?
Little low boy action there.
Yeah. Oh, good thing. There it is again.
Exactly. I mean, we're up here to have a little bit of fun every once in a while. I guess they don't bring us up here just to talk about freight. You know, this is a stand-up comedic.
I certainly hope not.
Yeah. Not only do we try to sell Sonar,
we just read the cue cards.
Yeah, so. Harrison, can you move that over
to the left,
bit?
please? No, kidding.
And so we're seeing that. We're seeing home starts or you know, housing starts are up.
Yep.
And then what are we also seeing on the opposite side is that trucking orders aren't really what we thought they would be at. They're at the pace of what we would normally see on a normal year to replenish trucks. You know, the larger national carriers, they hold on to their trucks for what, maybe a year and a half, maybe. Really, it's just like 50,000 miles, and they said get them out of here. And so they sell them and get new trucks back on the market. So we're seeing that. And then really lastly is that all of these analysts from the sell side are really talking to, you know, consumer packaged good companies, and they're reporting that because of the e-commerce boom, we're going to continue to see it through 2021. That was my spiel. Now I can go home for the day. But what do you?
I was about to say, like, you want to leave a little bit of air left in like the room for anybody else?
Yeah. No,
Like,
was there anyone else up here?
Come on
know.
now. Jeez. No. Let's unpack that.
There's a
lot
ton
there,
of stuff out there.
There's a lot there. First off, for anybody that's left that lasted through Kyle's monologue, be sure to leave us a comment. Leave us a comment below. If you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, leave us a comment. We're going to try to get to as many of those as possible during the show. So please feel free to ask any questions or any
give us your commentary. Yeah.
Or just what's happening. What are you experiencing? There's a lot happens in freight. Everyone's experience and exposure to the market is a little bit different. So let us know what you're feeling. But yeah, let's talk about this. So load tenders are up, but also you made a couple of good points, right? Housing starts are on the rise again, but
right.
Excellent point, right? SONAR, like, I don't want to brown nose here too much, but our CEO Craig Fuller did call the bottom of that dip that we had after the buying surge in March. He called the bottom very close to where it was in the middle of April.
Yep.
Right, I think we saw it was April 14th on all the tender charts that we measure, on those daily charts that we see. It was April 14th, and I think he was plus or minus just a few days away. Called the bottom, and it's been rising ever since. And now it doesn't. Over the last about 2.5 weeks, it hasn't really been rising, but it's been holding at those record levels. It's holding steady, and that I think has surprised a lot of folks. We talked actually. One of our folks on the editorial team interviewed some of the folks from Schneider and JB Hunt, a handful of the other large carriers out there, and one of the folks from Schneider said, and this tells you how tight capacity is right now and how high record volumes are. If load tenders, this is what they said. Schneider said, based on their network and the load tenders that they received, if load tenders dropped 10 to 15%. They still would have too much that they could handle. That's how high volume levels are. Everyone's like, oh, volume levels are high. Schneider, they're that big. Their network is that vast. Load tenders drop 10%. They still can't handle all their demand. Still can't.
Yeah, I mean, carriers notoriously like overpromise the capacity that they have, so it makes sense that occurs. But I mean, just to think about that, like. That is massive. You'd lose a quarter of your current portfolio. You'd still be over capacity, and that just goes to sense which means there's a lot of opportunity out there. So two other things to combat that is that drivers aren't entering the market, and these large carriers, it's not like they just want to give back freight. They want to keep adding people into those seats. They need more drivers. And so what's going to happen? That's, naturally, just like we see it with freight, when there's only a couple drivers in a market and you have a ton of freight, there's a lot of optionality. There's going to be a ton of optionality for drivers out there. So we're going to see, just like what we did in 2018, where we saw those driver wages really start to increase, you're going to see a lot of incentive coming from these big national carriers. Just because people aren't coming into the funnel, so how am I going to get a driver to work for me? I'm gonna say, sorry, Luke Trucking Company. I'm gonna offer your driver an extra 10 cents a mile, and maybe I'll keep them home a little bit more frequent. You're gonna see a little bit of that, which is great for the truck driver.
Something also that we've been seeing here is, and part of this that makes sense is, so in August we had record high retail sales. It was the number was, let me get it correct, $428 billion was the retail sales, and that's excluding motor vehicle sales, not including motor vehicle sales.
Insane.
Now, that's a big number, obviously, almost as much as Kyle makes trading stocks on the side, but it's about 2% higher than where it was year-over-year change, so August of 2019. Now, that 2% may not seem significant, but August is the first month since COVID and everything happened that does not have the help of the coronavirus aid package. So there's no enhanced unemployment benefits afforded in the month of August. They were gone by the month of August, and we still had an increase in record high retail sales.
Yeah, I mean, even e-commerce sales are up 45% year over year during the second quarter. So I'm really interested to see how the third quarter earnings are going to start coming back. But this is with SONAR. We're not Freightnomics. We've been talking about all these data sets. We'll leave that stuff for Zach and Anthony. And but what we're continuing to see, all these other things are true. I mean, you're seeing drivers aren't there. You're seeing e-commerce trends really hiking up. So what does that mean for you? Things are continuing to increase. You're seeing rate per miles change every week. So what do you need out there on your phone or tablet? What would make your life a little bit easier? And so that's something that we can actually provide with Sonar, is that the most up-to-date market data possible.
I see what you did there.
You like that?
I like that.
You like that? I mean, kings of segues over here. Next shirt you're going to see is not with Sonar. It's going to be with Segway.
With Segway. Okay. Bring back the Segway.
Yes.
Now, I've got a Sonar chart here for you. Let's actually throw it up here real quick. This is a different one. You haven't seen this one before. This is from our TCA data, and it measures driver turnover percentage. Now, this data set right here is a month old, so we don't have September's numbers yet. What you're looking at in front of you is from August, all right? So in August, you have here on the left, this is company fleet, reefer company fleet turnover percentage. That bottom number is the turnover rate. So that 152, I don't know if you can see that on your screen, it might be a little small, but 152 is that bottom number right under the big 122%. So
right.
There's 152% turnover rate right now for company fleets, for company reefer fleets.
Yeah, I mean that's
and
that's about average,
leased on fleets for reefer, it's 151%. Both of those are over 100% increase month over month.
That's crazy.
Insane. But it makes sense. Reefer tender rejections are through the roof. Reefer volumes going high.
Right.
We're seeing pretty high numbers on the van side as well.
Well, so just so people who
not as high,
who like our heat maps and are maybe really familiar, the stuff that we have with the TCA data, it's actually opposite. So
flip up a little chart here.
The red is actually increase.
Right.
Where normally that's green.
There you go.
And so the downward trends were actually green, and so the upward trends are going to showcase red, because just like with any, the higher you get on your cost for a trucking company, the worse that is. You want that as low as possible.
Yeah.
And so, driver turnover rate, that makes a lot of sense. And
yeah.
so there's a lot of, I think, anecdotal evidence out there that's showing, is it because are drivers not entering the market because of the stimulus check? Or is it that they don't have to? Or are they leaving the market? I mean, I kind of disagree with that. I don't know, but I don't have anything to actually point at. The only thing I could point at is like this guy who is like, I started in transportation, I never left. I don't think people leave the trucking industry, but.
Yeah, not easily. But I mean, even still, there's not really a lot of evidence that suggests that is the case either.
Right.
But here's the thing, we don't really have to guess. We can just look at what we have. So we know that truckload volume levels are over 50% higher than we were this time last year. We've seen that chart 100 times. Let's flash it up on the screen for anybody that's new. We won't look at it for very long. The blue line there.
Love a good roller coaster.
Exactly, right? The blue line is the daily truckload volume level in the United States. I do want to stress daily because these are actual load tender volumes that happen every single day. You're not having to wait for a survey or an index to come out. This is actual electronically tendered freights. This is real stuff coming directly from shippers.
Wait, so you're telling me that this isn't from just 2 weeks ago?
No,
just
it's not
re-reporting that
data. If I want to look at 2 weeks ago, I take my cursor, I move it back 2 weeks, and I look at 2 weeks ago. If I want to look
bada bing, bada boom.
Come on.
Luke got a little Italian there for a second. I love it.
Listen, 2 weeks ago doesn't help me today. I want to know what's going on today so I can log in today to see what's going on today. Imagine that, right?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? It's just like the stock market. Hey, I want to trade stocks today, but I want to use data from 2 weeks ago. Is that helpful? No, it's not. Now, anyways, the green lines that you see down there, that's 2018 and 2019 truckload volume levels. So we know big discrepancy there. And this is being validated by everybody. So there's some people, there's no way volume level's that high. Schneider just said if their load tenders dropped 15%, it would still be too much demand for them to handle. So, right. I mean, and that's happening across the board, and rates are hitting new highs.
So even if you are maybe, really reliant on load board data or invoice data, even if that is you, there is still no argument to say that volumes aren't through the roof. Yeah. Because why would rate per mile be up? And so that's always kind of our arguments with people, is that the capacity doesn't cause, it's the capacity that causes the rate per mile to change. It's not rate per mile that causes capacity to change.
Correct.
And so when we're seeing these supply and demand and sentiment changes, that's what's going to end up causing the rates to change. And so that's why this is so important, not the rate per mile, it's what is going to move that rate per mile. Right. I could run into like a pole, but it's really, and I can blame it on the car, but it's really the driver's seat. Like what factors end up causing you to hit that? Yeah. And so, that's why this stuff's so important. But Soapbox Center over here. Let me step down for a second.
But no, something that's really important though is we look at, okay, so 70%. I don't know if you were listening last week when we had our maritime expert Henry Byers on with us. Great segment, by the way. We talked a lot about what drives truckload volume. Obviously, the consumer drives everything, but if we look a little bit outside of that, staying on the transportation side, 70% of truckload volume in the United States comes from ocean.
Right.
It's ocean imports. So we know truckload volumes are up. How do we know it's going to continue? Well, the first step back would be, let's go ahead and look at ocean volumes.
Right.
So go ahead and flip this chart up on the screen for everybody to see here. This blue line, the blue line is daily. Again, same thing, we're looking at daily import volume. So every single day, what's clearing the imports? This is the number of shipments over here on the right that clears customs every day. The blue line is the year-to-date volume.
Right.
And the orange line is 2019 volume, right? So we saw a big dip here in February, right? Generally, we'll see. The reason why we saw the dip in February as opposed to March and April like we did in truckload,
correct,
is because it
China
takes a little bit. Well, China shuts down. It takes a little bit for that ocean volume to translate into truckload volume. It goes to warehouses, gets transloaded. A lot of it comes in from LA and then gets drayage.
Right, and for those that weren't here last week, Henry Byers, our market expert for maritime, was really describing this as that it's not necessarily the LAX market, but the Ontario market that really holds a lot of the warehousing. So looking at the imports that are coming into LA Long Beach, it's really you want to keep an eye on Ontario. And so what we even see with Ontario, it follows suit. And for those people that aren't, why would I even give 2 cents? I haul, let's say Dallas to Atlanta all day long. That's all I do, Luke. I own 3 trucks. That's all we do. Why do I give 2 cents about maritime data?
Guess what? There's a lot of imports that come into Houston.
Right.
Guess where Atlanta gets a lot of freight? A lot of stuff gets imported from Savannah.
Right.
In the Northeast, Port of New York, New Jersey, right? Port of Seattle, Port of San Francisco.
Right. It's so weird. Like if I could give you a little bit of a magic ball to say, hey, your truck's gonna be a little bit more useful, or maybe there's gonna be more demand for your truck in the next couple of weeks, would that be valuable to you?
Absolutely. Now, here's what I love so much about this chart here is you can literally see all the different movements that have happened in truckload a few weeks before. So obviously, as truckload volumes increase, we saw this big spike here in late April, early May. And that was largely just due to the fact that China came back online and they were just trying to redo all the orders that they missed. And then we kind of settled back down, kind of in line with seasonal patterns from 2019, again, that orange line. But then really in August, imports started shooting up. So we're about 12, 13% above where we were this time last year. And we've been holding that for a month and a half straight.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a wild time to be in right now. And let me hit these comments real quick. We got Taylor Barker. He's an owner-operator. He said the Dooner sent him on over. And so a little cowbell fan that sent him this way.
Right on.
Yeah, Dooner's over there in the corner and just waving his hand over here. But yeah, so he's all masked up, socially distanced, 25 feet away. He doesn't.
Right.
That guy doesn't come into the office very much. When he does, you ain't getting close to him. But he was saying the 150% turnover rate. He said if that was his company, he's like, I'm no business major, but I'd fire my management team if I had 150% turnover rate. So
you're gonna have to figure something out.
Yeah. Well, it all depends.
Now that was a record high. That's the highest that it has ever been since we've been capturing that data.
Right.
And it was a significant jump.
Right.
From any months prior this year. So it has been high, but that 150% was an absolute record high. It's never been that high before since we've been measuring the data, not by a long shot.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. And so, something, we've been talking about the bull market. We've been talking about, what are we going to see next? And I think what we'll see next is those driver wages really start to spike up. And so with driver wages going up, what are we going to see? Probably another hit on profitability if it costs more to operate a truck. And so we should see a higher rate per mile. So it'd be definitely interesting to see. But if anyone out there is maybe, if you're driving a truck or maybe you see these posts all the time, are you guys seeing maybe more advertisements coming from Schneider on your inbox? Are you seeing things out there that are maybe putting out higher rate per miles or more dollars per mile that you're getting? Leave us a comment below and we'll be happy to get some insights into what you're seeing out there in the market.
I'm also genuinely curious too, from the shipper side, if there's any shippers out there watching, how are you answering those questions right now? Are you going over your transportation budget that's been estimated so far, especially for Q3, right, where rates have been elevated for the greater part of the quarter, or pretty much the entire quarter?
Right.
How are you answering those questions right now with the management team? Do you have an answer for that? Did you prepare for this? Is this something that, COVID, so we just tossed it out the window? Or I'm genuinely curious. Give some feedback there. What you're experiencing as well from the budget side of things.
Right, and we are in budget season right now.
Yeah.
So
how is it going to affect your planning for 2021?
Correct. Something that shippers always want is consistency. If anything, they want consistency. They want to be able to project things. They want to be able to budget appropriately so that they can get down to maybe the SKU level to see how much transportation costs at that level. So what this is going to do, and this is what's actually talked about in the article that we talked about that Todd wrote, which for all of you, it's if you go on our sites, all signs point to a prolonged trucking rally is what it's called. And so what they bring up is that the increased spot market rates are going to cause contract rates to increase because shippers are going to be going back through a bid cycle. And so with spot market rates being so high where they are, we're going to see that elevation come through when people start bidding, which is right now. RFPs are peak season's coming out.
Yeah.
UPS is sending out those bids, Amazon's sending out those bids because we got peak season. We're gonna have like 2 months of Black Friday shipping that we need to get directly back to the consumer. So what are we gonna do? We need to try to secure capacity because that's the question mark over everything. Do I have enough capacity?
I've actually been talking to a handful of shippers right now, and one thing that they're telling me, not all of them, but a few of them, and this is even top, like these are Fortune 100 shippers. Like these are brand names that you all know. But some of them are saying like, yeah, we're doing an RFP this year, and they said, and we're starting it off like an annual RFP with kind of the assumption that we're going to be ready to play the volatility if we need to. We're going to do mini bids throughout the year. That expectation is being set.
100%.
Don't be surprised if we throw like a lot of freight into like a monthly bid and have people start bidding out freight, and you have to honor your rate for a month as things change. And like these aren't just small shippers that only have a little bit of freight. I'm talking like we're talking with some shippers that have 500, 800, $1 billion in truckload freight spend or more in some cases. This year has really caused them to really have to rethink transportation. And what's even taken it a step further is the fact that consumer buying patterns are changing.
Right.
And we're going so much online, and just the way that people buy things and the products that people are having to buy things. I don't want to say it's the new normal. I know everybody throws that out. I have no idea if it is or isn't. I don't know how we will know until that happens, whenever that time period is. But the fact of the matter is, right now, things are different, and people are just becoming more comfortable with changing the way they buy things, and that's causing a lot of shifts in the supply chain.
Oh yeah, and there's changes happening almost seems like every month.
Yeah.
When we even think back over the past 2 years, what has happened in the past 2 years in the trucking industry, going back to 2018? We saw ELDs, we saw tariffs, we saw the softening occur, we saw the oversupply of trucks, we saw the increase in driver wages at the end of 2019, we saw 3 hurricanes, and so to think like, oh, well, this will just all go back to normal. Yeah, it'll go back to normal until something else happens. And then, a year later, we saw record lows because of the oversupplied market last year, and then the COVID hit. And now we're in a completely new age where rate per miles are just through the roof. So what can you do? And Luke's kind of DJing over here a little bit, so sorry I'm not all looking at you, but what do we think, what are we brewing up over there? What are we going to be bringing up?
So something I've been looking at here, and we can, before we throw it on the screen, so there's a data set in SONAR, and it has a lot of layers to it, but it covers, in this example, it covers the 100 largest shippers in the United States, and it looks at the import volume that they're importing into the country. So it's a really good post to understand, again, kind of talking about which direction is the freight market going to go. Now, obviously, this data gets very, very granular, and we can kind of look at how you can utilize that kind of to improve your own business and grow your own business. Reach out to Kyle and I, and we'll set up a personalized demo so you can see how that works. But for sake of example, let's go ahead and throw it on the screen, and we'll look at a summarized view here. So what this is, I clicked on Amazon. I mean, you can see anybody else in here, Amazon. We've all heard of them, small little startup out of Seattle. And
that joke is still funnier the second time.
Yeah. It's I'm gonna ride it till it dies. No. So let me tell you what you're looking at here, okay? So top left here, you get a map. That's all the countries that they're exporting their goods from. The darker the color, the higher the volume is. Map right below that, okay? It's only a map of the United States. I'll give you a quick guess. Those are the states that their imports are clearing customs in. So obviously the darker the color there, the higher the import volume. So no surprise, it looks like China's the biggest export, and California is the biggest import state for Amazon. Now, what you're looking at here, this is over the last 30 days, so they've imported about 17,000 TEUs over the last 30 days, and that volume level has been very, very consistent. Big spike there around Labor Day, no surprise. And we're starting to see that increase happen, right? I mean, like the lows are getting higher and the highs are staying very consistent. That means that they're not, nothing's slowing down. Nothing's slowing down. And the beauty of it is I get to see where it's going. And I mean, if you care, you can even see what carriers, ocean carriers are using. You may not, but I mean, this is helpful, right? If I could see this much volume is coming into like California, that's going to tighten up capacity.
Well,
right?
I mean, if I'm currently supplying or fulfilling for Amazon, if I'm a trucking company who does Amazon loads, this would give me some points to be able to tell, okay, are they going to have more volume coming in? Should I reach out to maybe my rep and offer more capacity? I mean, if you have any kind of surplus capacity right now, you are obviously failing because there's so much volume out there. But even if you're going into like a Georgia Pacific or going into an Ashley Furniture or these top retailers, what this gives you is that ammo to be able to say, I know what your supply chain looks like. I know where you're importing. I know where you're then distributing because it matches what I have. I maybe run from, Southern California to Texas is maybe my backhaul. So it's a perfect opportunity for me to keep my truck running. Yeah. And so that's really what that becomes useful for is, be a little bit more of a strategist while also getting great tender data. Just another way to have a one-stop shop for any data you can want.
And the beauty of it is, again, it's a daily feed. So like when you see a big spike, like something like this happen, I mean, I can call it, if I'm hauling for Amazon, I call them up and be like, hey, I see you have a big spike. That's going to take a couple of days to turn into truckload volume. Hey, you need help with that? I got trucks.
They're going to say, what are you looking at? That's weird. How do you know?
Screenshot. All of a sudden, you just differentiate it yourself.
Right. I just so happen to catch Luke and Kyle, and I now know the supply chain routes of.
Take a screenshot. Send it to your Amazon guy. Be like, listen, I've got capacity.
There you go.
Cost you, but I got it. Let's
take
go.
a screenshot now. Put it up on your wall. You got 2 great
hit
photos.
Pause. Hit rewind. 10 seconds. There you go.
Boom.
Hey, I mean, yeah, we can do it. Look at all these companies in here. I can look at anybody I want to, right? I mean, there's Costco. Hey, right? I mean, we get the idea. Anyways, we can kill that. Take it off the screen. But anyways, thank you, obviously, for tuning in. Do we have any
last remarks here?
I don't know if we'll have time for last minute remarks. Unless you have a good one there that I can hit.
Nope, we're good.
Nope, none. Okay, sorry. Hopefully, we know you had great questions, but Kyle forgot how to read, so we can't do it right now. But anyway, folks.
You can only do one thing at a time, okay?
One thing at a time. I'm dishing them out here for you. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of With Sonar. It's obviously a pleasure, of course. Tune in again next Wednesday, 4 p.m. We'll keep discussing. And of course, if you want to learn more, please don't hesitate. Leave us a comment down below. Kyle and I will get back to you. And we'll take you through a personalized demo and show you how you can use this tool to make a lot more money. And that'll do it for today's episode.